Okay, here we go. The switch has been flicked and I'm on video mode. So hi everybody. I finally started to put myself down on screen. I did try and get help today to do this remotely, but here I am again, Blair Witch style. But no matter, I'll get the message across, I'm sure, or partly, if you follow with me. So what's prompted me? Well, it's obvious today, the developments at NC2 in Egypt. My friend Trevor Alexander, I can't thank you Trevor, enough for feeding back to me. I had expected some movement of some kind, and it was sort of getting to the extreme of the timing that I'd figured in my own mind. I'd reckoned a week to 2 weeks perhaps after my extravaganza, 4 hours or more on NC2, and the stuff that I'd put on site myself and in my own web pages on Matthew's server. I've been dumping gallery after gallery on there, and there's still many tons and tons to go on there. So in light of all that, I had also done something else that I perhaps didn't make as clear as I could have done on my video or in Facebook, and that is that I actually, apart from what was in the video, I made a direct email appeal to the President of Egypt and to the Director of the Plateau. And in both instances, I said, well, look, here's the situation. It is what it is. Here's where we've got to, and those are the reasons. Those are some of the events that have happened, and you can find them in much more depth if you, or someone on your behalf, takes the trouble to follow my 4-hour expose, shall we say, of NC2. And I finished it by saying that my intentions now are as they always have been, and that is that if I receive an approach from the authorities in any way, shape or form, and I gave options to get in touch with me, I said that despite everything that had gone past, I would be as willing as I ever have been to shortcut their experience, to shortcut their involvement going forward, to actually, if I were invited, to go back over to Cairo and in an instant go in there with the chosen representatives, the professional representatives of Egyptian archaeology, and point out to them, that's where that is, this is where this is. Over there you will find that for this reason. If you look over there from the material I've got in my hand, you can see, and I'll show you how the illustrations can be picked up with the naked eye, but where they can't be, here is the material to support it. And I would go through stage after stage after stage, and in a very short space of time save the authorities, who knows, hours to days to weeks, because they would have to match the equivalent of my own attention that stretches for a huge length of time, over a long period of time. So I put that offer out. I put it out to the President's Secretarial Office and to the Director of the Plateau, whom I'd spoken with before, and said, look, I know all this about NC2. At the time, he wanted me just to produce it. Well, you know, I'm not as naive as that. I've seen so many other people who produce information about the plateau or develop information about the plateau, and it just gets snatched away from them like thieves in the night. It disappears from them. As soon as it gets interesting or develops to a certain level, that's the way it works. The authorities, or those under the shield of the authorities, exploit it themselves. That's a fact. It's a simple fact that is known by anyone and everyone that has anything to do with Giza or Hawara and other places. That is how it works. And it works behind vast sums of money, obscene sums of money, unjustifiable sums of money that seem only to be justified in proportion to the thickness of the lining of certain people's pockets. It's a fact of life, it's how it works, and I'll go into it more presently. But the point I'm making is that I made a serious, sensible approach to the Egyptian authorities to assist them, once again to assist them for the good of everyone, anonymously even. I wouldn't have mattered. I would have done anything I could to have helped. And time-wise, I thought to myself, a couple of weeks. If something's going to happen, I'll know within a couple of weeks. Well, as I saw the first week come and go, and into the second week, I thought, no, nothing great is happening. I haven't been contacted, so I'll put another post out. This time a little bit more incisive, and it's the one that you've seen on my website. You know, it's no ambiguity there. I had said in the first long interview that I did have photographs of the corner chamber by the quarry area of Kefren, and but I didn't bring the photographs out, and I got a lot more than I actually showed now. But essentially, the post that I just put on there, I produced one or two of those pictures, so it was crystal clear that I wasn't bluffing. I've never bluffed. I don't bluff. And I put them on there, and I thought, well, if anything's going to stir anything, that is, because that is showing what they're concealing there. That although it doesn't make it a certainty, it shows very clearly that the radar images, the shadows that they illustrated going from NC2 and going across the ground, they meet up with the corner where that entrance is blocked. And as I mentioned previously, when I tried to approach that, I did manage to get some photographs, but I can tell you that when the guards came over, they were angry. They were agitated, angry, and there was no way they'd been instructed that anybody had to go near that corner. One wonders why, and we can answer it straight away: because it held special importance. Because as I found, even though I was photographing into pitch darkness in there, my photographs do illustrate the fact that there appears to be threshold, steps, the doorway there, and the chamber goes back into the right, but that's obscured by the stonework at the reveal, the door reveal. So I wasn't able to penetrate deeper with the camera in the short time I had there. But nonetheless, clearly that finally seems to have worked. I mean, okay, we're talking strength of probability here, but come on. There's a point where you've got to say, you know, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then it is a duck. Well, in this case, you know, I gave them in their faces now the evidence that supports the strongest possible probability that the radar images of the shadow, they have picked up the tunnel network from NC2, skimming down to join up in part at the doorway that's blocked up within that cliff area of Kefren. So the authorities, nobody got in touch with me, but instead my good friend Trevor Alexander, God bless him for getting in touch straight away. He informed me that the authorities today had cordoned that area off. And here's the bit of information that you haven't got yet, but I'm waiting for confirmation of this and photographs. That's what I was waiting for. That's why this is late. That's still to come. So I'm taking it on the strength of trust to this information at this point. But it isn't the sort of information that would come out of the blue as a wind-up. No way. Because it ties in with what I know. And what I've got now is that the authorities have erected some sort of gazebo, tent, field tent, whatever you want to call it, over that area to shield completely what they're doing in that entrance, within that entrance. And we'll see. I'm waiting for confirmations. As soon as I get anything, I'll publish it if it comes to my hands. It's an ongoing story, and I need to keep the parts of it joined up. So that's where we're at. Now, that being the case, then I can say to myself that even though I was working on speculations based on strength of probability, that clearly it's all worked out, that I was right. I was bloody right. I knew that the Egyptians had got a back door to get into the tunnel system to access the bottom of the tube tunnel at 350 feet in order to fill it with soil and stuff, including their aluminum foil that was undoubtedly used on the sandwiches, food that they brought in there with them, the workers. And they'd accessed in that way. They probably accessed and came back out again. But I don't think that they accessed for that purpose from that point, although it's clear that it is an access point. I think it was less difficult and more convenient at the time, because it did time up into the correct timing, when the Japanese were working on the second solar boat at the side of the Great Pyramid. That side, of course, being lined up with the line of what NC2 would produce. Also, again, let's get away from speculation, because Salt and Caviglia, although their notes are a bit haphazard, they do fit. They fit perfectly. Well, they would do, wouldn't they? And they went down further, several hundred yards, quote unquote, down into the plateau, and observed colonnaded chambers, a multitude of different ways going off. But they were operating by oil lamp. No matter, they told their tale, and it was sufficient for us at this stage to know that it wasn't just 350 feet down to a tube tunnel. They actually talked about that passage through the tube tunnel, which incidentally was lined with ribs, like going through the body of Agatha demon, the snake, the benevolent snake, governance of what's above and below, ordering the balance between the two. Not Hanash, vindictive, no, Agatha demon. Look it up. And we know from their notes that the system does project way down into the plateau. You can say beyond that, oh God knows how far further. But no, it's not enough to just say that. It'd be easy to say that. But there's information that we got from elsewhere. Where, you say? Well, if you go down through the causeway, as I did it when they were holidaying, and there were no guards to pull you away. And I went in there with my laser measure and my camera, and with very powerful LED lighting, and I photographed down all the shafts. I caught all of the shafts, I measured them and observed their profile to try and figure out how this was used, what would have made this usable. The rebated sides, as if something was capable of being to rise or lower, perhaps to float higher or lower. Now there's a thought, possibly, but with shafts going off from them, and clearly work done within them that was purposeful. You can see that when you look down there. And they're deep. They're deep, deep, deep. But however deep they are, they're not as deep as some of the shafts up on the eastern side, just up on the hill the other side of the Great Pyramid. Between the Great Pyramid and where the village stood, but doesn't stand there any longer. Now those shafts, there's one or two that are grilled, but when you examine them, any normal tourist probably wouldn't give it the time of day. But if you're investigating, you don't leave anything without examination. And I put through the same process, and I found that, I looked up, oh my godfathers, look at this. There's one there in particular. It's very, very tightly packed to the side of one of the mastabas. And it goes down, it seems forever. And it wasn't until much later that I realised the reason for that is because that particular one, we triangulated that one, and it lines up to where we know there's a tunnel reaching through from what was the village. Goes underneath the wall, continues on up into the network for its own reasons. So that was a nice cross confirmation there. And similarly, if you go to the other side of the plateau, to the solar cross, okay, that's a high part of the plateau. It's even higher than Gebel Gibli. Not a great deal, but it is. And at one time that had a temple on the top and other constructions which are the remnants are there now. But that's a bit of a strange place because the energies there are colossal. If you're sensitive in any way, shape or form, and you can feel energy, when you go to the solar cross, the energies there are so powerful. They literally, you can feel it in your chest. They literally knock you back. But the interesting thing there is that when you get inside and go down and examine, I'll give you a funny little anecdote. Because on the one occasion we were there, we were following a guide trusted route to go down below, and we heard noises which made us freeze where we were. Oh my God, what's going on here? Is there an operation in place? Are we going to get caught? Is this... all those things were in our mind. Well, it just so happens that, quite unknown to us, there was another group that had arranged in the night to go have a look down into, as far as they could get, into the depths, partly into the depths of the solar cross. And they'd heard us as we'd heard them. So it was quite some time before each and the other trusted enough to find out who each side were. And of course the guides, those in charge, did the thing. But from the tension, the spirits were lifted and everybody thought it was hilarious that we'd each thought the other was a raiding party, and it wasn't. We just each were on our own, same mission in our own way. Anyway, we went in there, and I can tell you that the Solar Cross also is an interesting. It's absolutely mind-blowing place below ground, because much of it is affected by blown sand, like most of the constructions on the plateau are. But when you get down there to an intermediate level, you find that it's tunnelled out to that level Often you have to crawling through spaces that will just allow you to let your body to pass through. But it has been raided and sacked. It's been raped. And it's been raped of coffins, ordinary coffins that have been in there where over many years in the past, clearly they've all been got at, and anything of value has been rooted out of there. So when you're going down through, you could very easily find that as you're crawling along, that your hand sort of grabs to something hard to pull yourself along, and you find that you've got a part of a human skeleton or a head, skull that you're touching. There's plenty of that in there, okay? For the faint-hearted, then it would give a shock. There's nothing there to find, per se, of value. There is if you have a camera and you're taking photographs of surfaces which you guessed and find later yield illustrations that can no longer be seen with the naked eye. Now there's something, because you're being offered a gift of history that's been memorialized in those illustrations. And that has been the case, and I've still got a whole ton of those that I haven't really paid a lot of attention to yet, that I have to analyze. But you see, the thing is that from above ground, when you go into the small constructions that are still visible above ground, they're not very high, they're quite exotic, some of them domed heads and roofs to it all. Very interesting. But you find, you can access the head of shafts that are very square cut, very precision, square cut, very big, and they go down a long, deep way. And when they go down to normal depth, when I say normal depth, 90 feet or whatever, like they are on the causeway, on Kefren Causeway, or the Sphinx Causeway, okay? They continue, but they then continue and they're fluted, they're inverted. They go down narrower and narrower and narrower, and they go down a hell of a depth. And it's the sort of exploration that you would only want to go to with proper climbing equipment, ropes and so forth, because it'd be too dangerous otherwise. Jumping back to when we were underground, there was one place where we were led and we were told, be very careful, the sand slopes off, be very, very careful. And as you go, told, look, there's stone there, you can brace against that. Okay, which we did in turn, those of us who wanted to. There wasn't a great large number of us, just a few. And the reason being is because one of those exceedingly deep shafts was damaged. It was broken through from the side below ground. And if anyone wasn't wary enough, you would just slide with the sand and go to the edge and go down the shaft. Gone. Like that. So in certain areas, the guides knew, we had to be extremely careful. Now the Solar Cross, I came onto that talking about the underground network of tunnels. And the reason is that during the course of this, talking to guides and others, we encountered and spoke to a whole bunch of people in the end to do with the Solar Cross, not least of all that guardian, that site guardian who'd been there decades, whom I spoke to, come back to him again to remind people. But in speaking to them all, they referred back to when they were children, delighted to describe what it was like in Giza when they were kids. There were none of the walls and barriers. Sure, there were tourists, wealthy tourists that came in for photo shoots from abroad, but their memory was of a plateau devoid of restriction, devoid of walls, devoid of barriers. And yeah, sure, it's no different from now. They knew that if they scrabbled about here or there, they may well find something in the sand that may well also be valuable. But there wasn't the sort of more frantic attitude of home safaris, as they call them, to dig under the houses or anything. They would find as they found. The point is that when they were children, the ones that are much older now, as children they played on the plateau. They had picnics out on the plateau. And the animals roamed freely on the plateau. The dogs guarding the plateau. And they guarded the plateau because it was their backyard. There was no need for barriers and so on. And universally, I've been told over and over and over again, the reason for those barriers now is not for the safety of tourists and to keep people away. It is in order to possess the treasures that it still holds. We're constantly told that the discoveries from below the sands amount to only a few % of what is still expected to be found. And what I can tell you and remind you from mentioning this previously is that our good friends, they said when they played on the plateau, they had ways down. There were ways where you didn't have to negotiate deep shafts because there were ways that were tunnelled to lower levels. And they would go down exploring. It was a boy thing. The boys used to go down exploring. Quite free about it. I mean, when I say this, I don't mean in a sort of blasé way where they would say to you, oh yeah, we went down there exploring. No, they would say we went there exploring and they would describe, we went so and so, we did this, we found that, we did this, we did that. Detail. And they commented on the strange energies down there. And they referred to the fact that there are those in the village who still remember so and so, and they give a name. He was the son of what. Where kids went missing. There were a few kids went missing and were never refound again. Were never discovered. They went missing and were gone, lost in the network. Because as they would say to us, and they would say now if you went out to interview, that they knew as part of their exploration that there were chambers, decorated chambers down there, and tunnels that went all over the place down there, went out from the plateau towards Saqqara and joined in with other tunnels and networks within the plateau. Okay, you could say, fine, show us some pictures. Fine, show us some film. You can cut the probability down by saying that. But where do you stop and say, hang on a minute? When you're talking to friends, I don't mean as an interviewees, I'm talking as friends, and you're talking at a casual level, a friendly level, sort of tea time chat about these sort of things. You have there has to be a point where you give your trust. You hear what they're saying. You're asking yourself, how spontaneous is this? Is this practiced? Is this rehearsed? If you heard that from one person, then you'd have grounds to argue that perhaps. But if, as we've done, spoken to so many different people, because it's on our mind to ask when it's appropriate, you don't go in rude. But eventually when you're talking, the place is of that sort of genre. So it's not an uncomfortable or unusual thing for the conversation to lead into chat about such things. And uh, it's not unusual. We find it not unusual to break into the chat and people just to casually start chatting about it, as you would about your past, or as we would about our past. And we took it at face value as it was. So, running ourselves back, how can it be that we've taken up this strength of belief that there is this network down below? Legend has it, now we're going to sort of speculation. Legend has it that Giza is one of those places on a par with the Yucatan, where in a time in the way distant past, when not aliens but a civilization had generated to a state of high technicality, not necessarily using nuclear power like us, but certainly using the thing of legend to us now, crystalline power, ley energies of the earth. I can remember even because I've always been interested in this sort of thing, but I can remember as a kid these things had come up and it would be laughed. You'd hear people laughing all the way down the street. Listen to him going on about this or that. But ley energies and all this sort of thing and technology and crystal people would laugh. They'd laugh their head off. You'd be you'd be the fool. I ain't no fool now, because science has caught up. And this thing about crystalline energy and other forms and levitation and other things defying gravity as we know it, and a host of other things are real. We're finally coming round now. I wondered if we'd ever see the day, for instance, when the hydrogen car would be given its due. All this nonsense, this complete red herring of electric cars. And they cost 10 times more than a normal internal combustion engine to develop, to manufacture, and to run. And the one that caps them all is hydrogen. Now, I remember as a kid hearing about hydrogen cars actually being made to work. Of course, the manufacturers, petroleum manufacturers, they'll squash anything like that if they can get away with it. But now it is coming to the surface again. So, my belief system really takes me to the point of probability for a previous civilization that rose and failed because of cosmic calamity. And we are the remnants of that, or we are the product of that, be it through genetic manipulation or however. We probably haven't gone far enough down that road to be a bit more certain. But those people, again, the strength of probability for me sits well to believe, as we know, that the earth was subject to cataclysm, which goes hand in hand with the knowledge now that there was life, intelligent life on this planet before, to a high level, before a cataclysm. So I don't think that it's too far-fetched or too far beyond the stretch of probability to believe that those people would have had some warning of stuff to come. And cities like Cappadocia and others that I mentioned on the previous, and even Giza, and even the Yucatan that now is covered with water, we know, that those places were recorded through history as being repositories or places to live in airlocked cities, airlocked places below ground, deep below ground, where methods had been achieved to generate the oxygen that was required, to generate the light that was required? Or are we so arrogant to say that, oh no, they couldn't have done that? Oh, go to hell, come on, get real. Of course they would have been able to. So, we turn back to the Giza plateau. Now, the legend has it, that there's stuff hidden down below ground. So, is there anything else that would persuade me in that direction? Well, yeah, there is. Because I know of ground penetrating radar that's picked up stuff below ground that's radioactive. We've been told of 3 places that we know of. And it's very deep. What the hell's that about? I don't know. But it seems there's a block on anything openly happening to explore deep down below ground. And I think I quoted this guy before in my last talk when I said that on the drivers, when I asked him, I said, what the hell doesn't I just open it up and go down? This is when he was full director of the plateau. And he said, no. He said they got time on their hands, on their side. He said if they opened up to go down as deep as it is down there, it would be an operation of a size that everybody would know about or would be asking questions about, politically and just through natural human interest. There would be so many people pressuring that they couldn't carry it off covertly, which is what they would like to do with everything, because they want to milk it as a cash cow for themselves, as a knowledge cow. I mean, come on. If you've got advanced technology or more advanced than ours in its own way, you'd want to get your hands on it, wouldn't you? However immoral that is. So what have we got? When people ask me, why are you so strongly rooted in your belief of what's going on there and what's potentially down there? Well, it's all coming to light, you see. I mean, again, how many times has something got to be validated for somebody to turn around and say, well, he wasn't wrong, was he? Let's go around to the other side of the Great Pyramid itself. I mean, for God's sake, look at what's gone on there. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. My God. So, okay, let's just put it under the spotlight. We've got the Great Pyramid. You got your way in. We all know that the original entrance isn't quite exactly where it is now. It was a forced entrance and blah, 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 Belzoni. But, it's impressive. We've got the Grand Gallery, King's Chamber, we know about that. I think I've directed people to the experiment I did in there. I'm convinced of that part anyway, because I nearly got that myself. We did the entombment experiment. I don't know, I'm not looking for a Cadbury's cream egg or a medal for this, but I find that I can produce this party piece entombment with a voice that matches the Grand Gallery. And I've been into a recording studio with that and had it all examined and everything. And it sets it off like a bomb going off. It's incredible. But, that led me to adopt the conviction that just one of the tiny little things that is true of the Great Pyramid, that certainly the King's Chamber was constructed with a mind to it being used as a resonance chamber. And that resonance, the frequency of that resonance, it has a physiological effect on your body. Actually, the feeling is like crystalline energy, or your flesh actually crystallizing. It doesn't, but that's the feeling. And I very nearly broke out. In our case, we got so close. It wasn't to be that day, clearly. Instead, Jude and I, we were escorted out by 2 soldiers with machine guns shoved in her ribs, the bastards. And they were ashen white. They didn't know what to make of it, but the booming anyway that I produced was just a matter of fact. It went down and outside, and there was a fair crowd of people down outside there, basically asking what the hell's going on. So with the Great Pyramid, and it's one use. That's just one little thing. King's Chamber. It's a resonance chamber, and it can be used to help induce subjective out of body experience. But you see, the authorities, the main man in charge at the time, as everybody knows, know there is nothing else here. We know everything about it. There's nothing else here. That's it. Well, and there's me having a conversation with the driver again on the other side. I have to say I had a good relationship. Still got a good relationship with a lot of working people there. We've ingratiated ourselves with common, ordinary, down-to-earth villagers. Cultivated that over decades now. They're the salt of the earth. They're the most wonderful people. They will give their blood for you. I can't emphasize it enough. And so many times that came instead for us to gather information or to help us in some way. That's why it came so hard when our friends that we'd spent time with when we lived in the village, that made up the half dozen that were murdered in the house next to us. I could go full circle and come back to that presently, but for now, keeping on track with the Great Pyramid. We knew the villagers so well that they would help us and give us information. And one in particular who was part of, well, not just one, I know a few of them, who were part of the working crew, the official working crew there for the authorities. I was chatting to him, and he was telling me about the one of the mastabas off to the southern side. There's a shaft that drops down, goes to a tunnel, rises up, goes into the Great Pyramid at a low level. There's a big chamber there, but he didn't know further than that. He was quite frank. He said, "Oh yeah, I know about that." He says, "We've been down there clearing stuff away, clearing stuff out." Okay, so there's that. Sorry, what was that you said, by the way, Mr. H? There's nothing more here. We know everything there is here. Well, no, that's a fib, isn't it? Well, there's something I've just been told about down the side there. And guess what? It's only a year ago now, isn't it? Those wonderful, brilliant guys who had the satellite survey. I can't give a technical name for it now. My brain's too fuzzy. Who did the satellite imaging on the Great Pyramid? And I will say to you, by the way, note this down. Some guys who are working in liaison with them now, but they're going to do the same with the Sphinx and its surrounding area. What? Oh yes, oh yes. Watch this space on that. But they did it on the Great Pyramid. And what did they find? Now, what was it we were being told? There is nothing else here. There's nothing else here. Really? So what did they show? They published. Oh my God, if I could have been in the office when that was seen for the first time. Oh my God, look at this. Look, they published this. Oh my word. What did they show? What they showed was that where the King's Chamber is in the Great Pyramid and where the Queen's Chamber is in the Great Pyramid, that there are huge passageways that go around in a U shape to a square shape that are connected down to the next level, and there are huge chambers and passages within the Great Pyramid. It's like a cheesecake in there. The Grand Gallery and the King's Chamber and the Queen's Chamber and the passage going into the pyramid, you could, and down below, you could lump them all together into one, and it still wouldn't even get half close to the volume of empty space of these passages that were shown up by this satellite radar technology. It was astonishing. And when I first saw it published, I thought, oh my God, this is going to stir something up. But I should have known better. Because I thought to myself, this is probably the most astonishing bit of new information that's come out in the last century. But anything. Be like, I don't know, discovering an alien house below the ocean somewhere. And you know what? It was published in a couple of places that I saw. Couple. It wasn't a mass thing that hit the world. No. It should have been. You would have expected it to be. No. Especially in Egypt. Can you imagine? The authorities in Egypt, if it was all above board and if things were conducted in a people-centric way, there would have been a day of celebration on it. Look what we've discovered. Look what we've been helped to discover now. Oh my God, look, going forward, the people would have been celebrating along with the authorities to exploit, get into and see what it contains. You know, how it contributed as a part of the workings of the pyramid. Because there's been enough studies done already to show that the energetic properties of the pyramid are functional. Don't need to say really more than that, you know. And clearly if that part's functional, then this had to be a part of the function also. And there's also huge corridors that dive deep down into the plateau. Now, as far as the imagery showed us, and I would forgive the authors of this if it subsequently found that they withheld some little bit of information here and there, chopped it off at this point when it shows us a little bit more. Because subsequently our involvement, when I say our, I mean Bill Brown and Trevor and others, where the bit of ground penetrating radar imagery that we managed to get ourselves of the ground at the base of the Great Pyramid Causeway, we found afterwards that we'd been fitted up on that because there had been GPR scans done already, and we were sort of steered away a little bit from. We were put into a little bit of a confinement, so that there were things that we couldn't pick up very easily. But by deduction, we were able to pick quite a bit more up than what they thought we would be able to. And our determinations there show a mysterious connection from the plateau going over in the direction of one of those deep shafts going underground, which we now believe there is a connection. And we believe, that's what we discovered, and I've done sketch impressions from all of that. I haven't publicly shown them yet because, they need to be taken further and validated, verified. But it's enough from what we were able to gather to have a greater strength of feeling, for a greater strength of probability that we're onto something. We're onto the right track there also. And guess what? The one day when I was up on the plateau, I was on my own, and I was mooching around the Great Pyramid outside, studying the basalt and the ground, the way the layers are laid out, because there's correlation from that to the Sun Temple. And I took myself down through the causeway, the Great Pyramid Causeway, and as I was walking down there, I just happened to just totally coincidental to the day. Mark Lano was there, so I stopped and I chatted with him for a little bit, and we both recognised each other, certainly by name anyway. And I referred back to NC2, and I expressed my concern over there with the huge new public restaurant that's been built on the heights there, that is encroached over actually to the right-angled line of NC2 as it penetrates that north cliff into the plateau. And I'd expressed, I was concerned that the foundations of that had perhaps interfere with NC2 and the tunnel system. And he'd already associated. He knew the association to NC2 from my name anyway, and he agreed. He said, I actually agree with you. He said, I was concerned myself. He said, and he did say to me that he made these concerns known at the time when it was being discussed. Fair. He said, but the importance of the restaurant took precedence over any other concerns. They went ahead. Now, I've been into NC2 since the foundations were laid and the place was built. And so far as I was able to see at the time, that no disturbance or damage had been done to the upper part of the system. But in any event, that part of the system, I've got all the info on that. I've got all the measurements, the layout, and everything, as you saw from my lengthy marathon presentation. But the point is that I'm making from this is that whether you go to the top of the plateau, NC2, or to the bottom of the plateau, to the constructions that we have sort of associated ourselves to or with, we know that there's stuff going on at a deep level within these corridors and so on. Bill himself, I'm not going to spring any information there that's for Bill to spring himself, but he's sitting on a real sort of whistleblower of information to do with the tunnels and things at that end of the plateau. What I can tell you is that day when Mark was there and I'd finished talking with him, I walked on a little bit. Now down there at the end of the causeway, it's very difficult to have free time there because it's policed very heavily and strongly. And as I walked down towards the top of the cliff looking down over into the village, there was only one policeman there, white suited and on a camel, looked very official and so on. They would normally come over to you and tap you. In fact, I've sort of given backsheesh a few times to policemen on camels. And I expected the same thing, but I think because he'd seen me talking to Mark, and he obviously would have known Mark, he thought little of having to challenge me or anything. And I had my usual, I had my clipper board and my compass and all the trappings that maybe looked like I was surveying or something. You got to try and look the part. You can't ever get anywhere and do anything on the plateau if you look like a tourist. I'll tell you that now. So on that particular day, he tipped his head to me and just sort of nodded, and only a few yards as he passed me and I passed him. And I went on then to the cliff overlooking. Well, because there was nobody else about at all. So I thought I'll have a nosy and a mooch, and just get my bearings. And you can determine a lot if you sort of engage your brain and just look and figure things out a bit. And I knew all that I knew about further down below, and I knew about the radar survey work that had been done and so on. So I climbed down the cliff area. I was about halfway down, and lo and behold, I hear this clunk and bang and clunk and clump and clunk. I thought, oh my God. And I realised at that moment that I had stumbled on and could hear the guys working down below, deep down below. I thought, oh, bloody hell, there's the site. I know where, oh God, I know where the site is. So I thought I got to tip somebody off. So I had the phone number of somebody with influence on the plateau, and I rang them and I said, look, I can hear the guys. I said, I've just come off the top there, you know, the policemen and so on. I said, they're making too much noise. So whatever they're doing down there, I said, it's coming out onto the surface. You can hear it. Oh God! So okay, then he was glad of the information, and I'm sure he got in touch with them and told them, because the noise stopped. You know, it went quiet. So well, they're not going to come out and say hello to me because they're invisible. But I had a good guess. I knew of them. But the reason I'm saying it is to link into something there, because that's where the police raid took place some time later. Totally separate to this. And, you know, it made headlines, it made the news, made the TV. We got the movie still now, which we've shown. Yeah, and that's all sealed off now. It's all sealed off now. But a huge opening had been made down into the underground there, opening up a huge area of chambers and burial grounds and all manner of things. A real sweet shop, fantastic. But at the time, big thing was made of it and the papers and all that. And having sort of established authority again, it was all put back to sleep and the status quo was re-established and things got back to normal. The point of it is, the reason I brought it into this little saga, it's just to say that when you talk about forming convictions based on strength of probabilities, this sort of ramble that I have taken you on through all these different things, and there's more, God knows there's plenty more. I want you to, or I'm asking you, can you see how when you're steeped in the activities over there that we've been, that it's not hard for the strength of probability for things to rise and rise and rise and rise and rise. And as far as the underground is concerned, where, for instance, in NC2, where Zahi above all wanted to ridicule the non-academics, or shall I say the pyramid idiots, where Zahi went to the extent of pulling his film crew, his own film crew, come with me, come with me, across the plateau, come, look here, there's NC2 entrances, come with me, we'll see, there's nothing, come. They go inside all on toe and follow your master, follow your leader, he's going to show us. So we go inside. As we already know, in there, the bat colony was still in existence in there. Woo, big bats bash into your head. This thing about them, they miss you because they can sound you and avoid you. The more confined space, they'll come and they'll whack you. By God, yeah. I've been whacked a few times myself in the early days when the bat colony was in full residence there. But he goes in there. Look, there's nothing here. Oh, what is this? Oh, the bats. I hate bats. I wasn't sure whether I was listening to schoolgirls screaming. The bats, I hate the bats. Oh, look, there is nothing. I say to you, there is nothing here. And down he goes, he takes them down to 350 feet. They managed to get down to the tube tunnel that eventually was blocked from the bottom. at the tube tunnel, and one of them, have a look, I forget his name, have a look, and he's there with his torch, goes through. At that time, within a body's length into the tube tunnel, there is a floor niche, or a very small shaft or tunnel, whatever, filled with stuff. There are shaped stones sticking out of it, as I've been able to show with my photographs, that were illustrated, well illustrated. Those disappeared. They went with the rape session. But this guy crawls in, manages to overcome these. I can see nothing. There's nothing here. No, I can see down there. You can't get through. You can't go on. I'm going, what the hell? No, you're right. So out they come, these bats, the bats. There's nothing. I tell all the time, these pyramid idiots, I told them there's nothing. Ay. So that was a verdict. He came out of there. But Zahi, can you explain when I took screen captures all the way through the movie and I put them under digital analysis? Can you explain when there's nothing here, that behind your head as you're squealing past on the rock wall there are these incredible fabulous images of animals and scenes and things happening and all kinds? The walls from top to bottom are covered with images that can barely be seen with the naked eye, but they can be recovered by digital analysis. But Zahi, by your archaeologically expert approach, by the power of your archaeological seniority, by the power thereby of your scientific approach to taking the film crew to check the system out, all that expertise, it led to, the bats are terrible, there's nothing here, there's nothing. Zai, please explain to me, how was that archaeologically sound? How was that done in an archaeological and an expert way? Not a trowel in sight, not a brush in sight, not an expert in sight, simply a stomp down through the system and a declaration that this place is worth nothing. When I, just an ordinary person, without touching a thing, without taking a thing from there, being strip searched on 3 occasions when I came out of there to make sure, by friends, and I didn't object and I didn't mind. How can I spend the time in there in tears at the strength of vibration and at the violation that I saw done in there by your teams when they rape things out? How can I come out and present to you and to Egypt and to the people of Egypt that this is a place where it is filled with walls of record, that not speculative, through all of those things that I've been talking about for the last half an hour, for all of those reasons, my score of probability has gone through the ceiling to say, Salt, Caviglia, Henry Giovanni, I believe you. You were right. Beyond the tube tunnel, it goes on down into the ground. Who knows how deep? I already know over at the far end by the pyramid, we haven't even started to get to the bottom of where all of that leads to. We know on the solar cross end at the other side that it goes down that deep and deeper. I know from the guy who was keeper there for 30 years that he talked about meeting people from down below. They to him and he to them. I know that the army tried to get through the tunnels heading out towards Hawara with explosions. I know that day because in the morning of that happening was when my father died at home, had a heart attack in his armchair. It happened the same time that I heard the explosions. I happened to be up early that morning, very early. And I learned later why the explosions took place. So I am now saying to you to everyone, this is my strength of conviction. And I run by the probability that there is something incredibly special, knowledge, information of its own kind, deep, deep, deep down into the plateau. I believe, if only in speculation, but probably by greater information than that, the Egyptian authorities also, some, know of it. And that brings us full circle as to why now, today, they have a canvas tent and they're penetrating where I said it was an entrance into the NC2, a backdoor entrance, one of them, for the same damn reason. And it is because they want to possess it themselves. They're not interested in you listening to me, sharing in this. You may get a mention of it if you're lucky and be happy with it 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, when they release some information about it, if they wish. They wish to possess it. And I say to you now, listen to me here now. I'm invested in this spiritually, mentally. You know, there are so many things in front of me here. Look, I have pages and pages, pages and pages and pages of notes to do with different aspects of it. I have so much information that I've gathered. And I've come full circle with that. What am I to do with it? A good friend, Matthew Turner, God bless him, and Wayne, his friend, who've got a private server and who are helping me to lay all this stuff down for posterity. But isn't it a sadness that it has to be like this? I tried to get the information out on Facebook, but Facebook is wrapped up with algorithms. You know that you're only going to hit 10, 12 people unless it's shared, unless other people carry the message on. It'll be the same with this movie. I don't even know as I'm doing it because I'm just a rank amateur doing it. I don't know how well this is taken. I hope it works. But it'll only work and it'll only have an impact and perhaps make a difference if genuinely, oh God, help us, if those people who see this and who resonate in part or in whole with what I'm saying, I beg you, share it. Get past the algorithms for me. I don't give a monkeys about the glory. It doesn't even come into it. Yeah. It's irrelevant. I'd rather go to the toilet. Do you get what I mean? I don't give a monkeys. It's getting the spirit, getting the message of it all. That's it. That's what it's about. That is what it's about. Nothing more, nothing less. So, presently, I'm going to shut this down. I've got so much more to say and tell, but I'll catch up again with that, with Matthew. And I just hope that this will be picked up. And, you look past this ugly face here and go for the message and pass it on. Support it on. Because if you don't think you're worthy of this information and this knowledge, I sure as hell do on your behalf. And I do for the Egyptian people. I could weep for them. The people of Egypt, who are the poverty that they endure, the goodness that they project. They are good people. And they're robbed of this. But guess what? In a couple of years' time, you're going to be able to go up any of those roads around the complex with your little tutors, because just up the road there we have now got our very own Disney, Giza Disney. And you walk in and you'll go and you'll sit in the electric car where they put you, where they chug you around, and the guide will go, look, that's over there, and that's and that's over there, and oh, look at this and look at that. And you might see the stable where some very well kept horses are, and so on and so on and so on. You'll go where you're told to go. You will not be able to explore where you want to explore. It'll all look very beautiful and plastic. And the real people, the ones that are being shoved off there now, their horses will no longer be alive, or any other animals. They won't be needed. They'll be in those flats that they've been put in on the other side of the plateau. Tall, sterile flats. I've been in them. And, they're comfortable, but sterile. And your Disneyland tourists will come to Giza, and in the cleverest way possible, their money will be taken and taken and taken and taken and taken and taken and taken. I'll keep talking while I keep going on like this. It'll keep on be taken until there's nothing to be taken. And you will go where you're allowed to go. You'll go to the viewing point where you're told to go. The character and the feel of the whole place will be gone. All the villages will be gone. All the old houses of character will be gone. I got photographs, thousands, tens of thousands and thousands and thousands of photographs, all through the village, where it shows you there's Corinthian columns and things, or pieces of ancient history all the way through there. The place oozed character. And all they ended up with being, for the people in charge, was a bloody inconvenience. It's just tragic. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, folks. Do with it as you will with all this, and I'll keep feeding you information as I get it, of any kind. And I'll just put a postscript on this, and that's to say, I've done this tonight because of the choices that the Egyptians have made to continue as they continue, the Egyptian authorities, to perpetuate the system. But I have got insurance policies in place. If that hand of darkness reaches out to me, and I know I've put myself up for it, but I'll tell you now that if something does happen to me, it won't be by my own hand. Know that first. Absolutely never by my own hand. But there are those whom I trust, whom I have passed information out to, who hold my insurance policy. And if anything happens to me, then the balloon will go up because the finger will be pointed where it needs to be pointed. Okay, that's it, folks. Love and blessings to you all. Okay, I'm going to press the button to close. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the time.